Good morning, good morning, good morning. Energy Audit Thursday, you guys. Talking about prioritizing patterns this morning. When your patterns don't match the peace you pray for, that is today's title. When your patterns don't match the peace you pray for, you guys. Listen, the habit isn't random, right? It is a response. The habit isn't random, you guys. It's a response. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am ready for this conversation. I'm excited about this conversation. Good morning. Good morning. The habit isn't random, you guys. It's a response. Okay. Today's title: when the patterns doesn't match what you pray for. Listen, what habits pull you away from your core values? Good morning, Mariah. All right. All right. Listen, our theme again is for this month is seizing control of life's priorities, and we're talking about our values, right? We're talking about our values this week in prioritizing our values. All right. And here's the truth: most of us aren't just exhausted; we're misaligned, right? We're misaligned, you guys. We're spending energy trying to maintain a version of ourselves that no longer fits. We're spending energy uh trying to maintain a version of ourselves that no longer fit. So you might say I don't have time, but really your calendar is full of people pleasing, right? um you might say I'm just being responsible, but really you're carrying the roles that wasn't meant for you. Okay. Good morning, Miss Melissa. All right, you might say that's just how that's just how I've always been, but really you're scared to let go of who you had to be, right? Really you're scared to let go of who you had to be. So this conversation is your invitation to pause and ask, what am I still doing out of habit, even though it no longer honors who I am becoming, who I am becoming. Okay, why? Why? Because I know what it's like to really live a life that looks good on the outside and feels off on the inside. Okay, I know what it feels like to live a life that looks good on the outside but feels off on the inside. I created this session for anyone who's tired of being loyal to habits that no longer serve them. Okay, that no longer serve them. The ones who are ready to stop confusing productivity with purpose, right? And start really choosing peace over performance. Peace over performance. Our awareness and disclaimer for this morning is that this session is truly designed to really help you examine the patterns that are costing you your peace. Awareness is a powerful step, a powerful first step, but transformation happens when you begin intentionally. And awareness happens. Awareness happens when you begin making intentional, aligned choices. If you're ready to reclaim your energy, you must be willing to let go of who you had to be to survive, of who you had to be to survive, and really honor who you're becoming. All right. I want to repeat that again. Okay. If you're ready to reclaim your energy, okay, you have to be willing to let go of who you had to be to survive, all right, and honor who you are becoming. All right, this is essential, right? This is essential. So I want to say good morning. Good morning. It's Energy Audit Thursday. Okay. So let's take our deep breath this morning. Let's breathe that last statement in, because a lot of the clients that I work with, the core of the issue is sometimes that, right? The loyalty to who they had been conditioned to be, and this feeling, good morning, Lewis, in this feeling of betrayal, right? That they feel in honoring, right, the person that they're becoming. And I just want to give you permission in this life lesson that it's okay, right? We can honor both spaces, right? I had to be that based on my circumstances and conditions and the environment. And it's okay for me to move past that and grow past that. Why? Because it's causing me a level of dis-ease now, right? And I can honor this person that I'm becoming, this woman that I'm becoming, this man that I'm becoming. And how do I do that in a healthy way? Right? That's where we start to advocate and get help for ourselves. So good morning. Good morning. Take the deep breath. Let's feel our feet on the floor, right? This is your time. No pressure, just your presence, right? Breathing in this person we're becoming, right? Out that old version of ourselves, right? Releasing that old version of ourselves that we needed to be to survive. And that's okay. We needed to be that person to survive, you guys. And that's okay. We don't have to judge that. We don't have to do anything, but just let it go. Okay. Feeling our legs, our butts on the seat. Okay. Our torsos relax, our chest fill up. Right. Our necks, our arms. Okay. Our hands, our face, which includes our nerves, our lips, our nose, our eyes, our ears, and then the space around us, right? Our skin, right? Which is the biggest organ of our body. Let's feel that, right? And just get real present. So drop a word in the chat for me. How are you feeling this morning? How are you feeling this morning? Drop a word in the chat for me. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good this morning. While you drop the word in the chat, whoever's editing this video, I want you guys to take this part out. But this is for everybody who's present right now. So tomorrow we won't have a live session. I am going to be in LA, so I'll be leaving in the morning, and I won't be able to come on live. But you guys will have a life lesson. I still want you guys to engage because I will be able to engage. Right? We're going to be talking about the inner critic in the morning. So I don't want you guys not to show up for that session, right? Because I will still be there. I will still be there. Lewis said, I'm tired, boss. Melissa said, peaceful. Okay. Right. All right. Okay. Because I will still be there, right? I will still be present. I'm going to give the content and engage because I'll be asking for the same type of engagement. And remember, this is for you, right? So you're showing up to get the content, to get the information, and to keep your energy and momentum going. Pep said, Ernest. All right. So Lewis, I'm tired. I'm tired, boss. Yeah. I wish, some days it's just like that, right? Ernest, I like that, Pep. And peaceful, Miss Melissa. That's a good place to be, peaceful. All right. I'm excited. Okay. I'll be in LA. I looked at the weather. I think it's going to be nice. A good friend of mine is having a birthday party. So I plan on what? Having a good time. This is so true. Miss Mariah says she's feeling hopeful this morning. All right. So good morning. Good morning, everybody. Okay. So we'll be talking about the inner critic in the morning, checking in at 8:45. All right. All right. So who this session is for? So this session, you guys, is for you if you're emotionally tired, right? If you're emotionally tired and can't figure out why. All right. If you're emotionally tired and can't figure out why. If you're consistently productive but rarely feel fulfilled. And if you feel disconnected from your values, even though you're doing everything right, right? Even though you're doing everything right. This session is for you if you're ready to stop spending your energy on autopilot and really start honoring the version of you that's aligned and not effective. All right. Good morning, Miss April. All right. The version of you that's not effective. All right. So our quote for today, we had this quote before, but I definitely feel like it really is going to tie into today's session. All right. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you guys. You fall to the level of your pattern. All right. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your patterns. And we know your patterns is your habits. So a lot of times, we create goals, and we do. Goals are good. They're anchor. They are a vision for where we want to be. But, the goal is kind of like, the dirt that we're throwing, right? it's not that we don't rise to that goal. It's really about what is my fall point, right? When I can't hit that goal, what is my default? And that default is the level of your patterns. And a lot of us are defaulting, you guys, to our conditioned state. And that conditioned state is what? Is that wounded child, right? Is the wounded child. So we're defaulting at 45 to our 5-year-old, to our 10-year-old, to our 15-year-old, wounded, unsafe, you know, person, right? I'm not I want you to understand that, because that's the pattern that you still have yet to break, right? You have yet to go in, discover, update that mindset, that conditioned mindset. You have yet to go in, update that, rewrite that, right? And make it your own, right? And so you're still running off of in whose patterns were those? The environments. So those are probably grandma's patterns or your mama's patterns, or a consequence of the environment, right? So they were protective, they were survival mode, right? So you were in survival mode. A lot of those patterns kept you in survival mode. And today, right, you're tired, right, of surviving, but your patterns are built around what? Survival, because you're defaulting to what? Survival, right? And so you don't really feel like you're thriving, because you're always defaulting to you don't feel like you're thriving, but you're always defaulting to survival. And the reason why is because you haven't done the work to really upgrade to a thriving pattern, you guys. All right. All right. So remember Jasmine, right? Remember Jasmine. We talked about Jasmine. We talked about Jasmine all week. Okay. So now we're on Thursday, right? So remember Jasmine. I worked with Jasmine, and we talked about, I did an energy audit with Jasmine, and Jasmine realized that she wanted to prioritize she wanted to start prioritizing her values, right? By Thursday, she was exhausted again, you guys. So remember, she had the friend, and then her friend, she said she was going to prioritize her life. As soon as she said that on Monday, listen, I'm going to prioritize my values. Once she did that, she got a call from her friend, and she said no, right? And that no triggered this guilt, right? And we talked about that trigger on Tuesday, right? That sometimes the trigger is an invitation to see if this is what you really want. And so she realized, yep, okay, I can feel this guilt, but I can still say no to my friend. And she did that, right? And so on Wednesday, she got to work, and we talked about what? The obstacles. So on Wednesday, she got to work, and she realized that, she really wasn't prioritizing her peace, right? That was another value that she had, because her schedule was just overwhelmed, right? And so she took her time, and she went in, and she took a couple of hours off to get her rest, right? Now by Thursday, she's exhausted again, right? She started the week really declaring peace as her new value, but her pattern of over functioning crept back in. Okay, she filled her schedule. She filled her schedule. She took on extra responsibilities. Remember, right? This is the conditioned mind. So she's taking on extra responsibilities. She said yes when her body was whispering no. Okay, that's the condition. When her body was whispering no, she wasn't lacking clarity, you guys. She was just following an old pattern. And that's what most of us do. Our habits betray our our highest intention. And this is why I want you guys to stop judging yourself. Okay? I want you to stop judging yourself. There are 3 laws that we actually live by. So there's the biblical law, right? So that's the Bible's law. There's the universal laws, right? Which can be included in the biblical law, right? But there's a body law, right? That's sin law, right? And we know about this sin law because the Bible talks about it. When I say I want to do something and I can't do it, and then I say I can't, Paul talked about, I think it was Paul or one of the disciples, but that's the sin law. Why? Because the body is a condition, right? The body will do what you taught it to do. That's why we call it sin. And that's why for me, When I hear the word sin, I think about sensation. I think about this sensation, and sensation builds what? Habit, right? Because we're sensational, good morning, brother, beings, right? There's a law to that, right? And so when I build habits, there's a law that follows that habit. And this is why we have to be more compassionate with ourselves, because although on Monday, guess what? Jasmine made a decision that she was going to prioritize her values. By Thursday, right, of the next week, she had already fallen into a habit of betrayal in her mind, right? Her habits betray her highest intention, right? And the moment Jasmine realized her exhaustion wasn't random, right? She um the moment in that moment, Jasmine really realized that her exhaustion wasn't random, you guys, but it was a result of her repeated habits. She didn't shame herself, right? Because we talked about it. No, we're not going to shame ourselves. She audited her energy, right? She said, this isn't who I am anymore, right? And then she pivoted because there's the law of members. The law of our members wants to do the thing that I've always done. The law of my members wants to continue to act in the way that I have been conditioned to act for 30, 40, 50 years, right? That's the law of my members. That's the Bible speaks of this, right? And so we just have to understand, and that's why we want to give ourselves grace. That's why we want to give ourselves like understanding and compassion. I know why I'm saying yes to this stuff. And this is why we also want to become self-aware, right? Learn emotional intelligence, learn how to apply emotional intelligence, pause, right? Insert a spiritual law, right, into that, because there is a space where life is already going to do what it was created to do. Insert the spiritual law, right? So I don't have to carry that weight. That's the forgiveness, that's the letting go, right? And so the change can happen. Good morning, Tiana. So the change can happen, you guys, right? If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me, right? So she wasn't lacking clarity when she filled her calendar up. She knew, right? She knew she was following this old pattern. She was following this old pattern, you guys. All right. So I want you to pause. What's one thing that keeps you? What is the one thing you keep doing out of habit, even though it no longer aligns with who you are or what you value? Okay. We're not going to judge it. We're just going to become aware of it. Because here's the thing, when we judge it, I talk about those meta emotions. Now, it's not even that thing that I'm wrestling with, it's the judgment. It's my inner critic. And I'm strengthening this inner critic. And now I'm wrestling with my judgments of me. I'm wrestling with my own voice of who I am. I condemn myself, right? For something that just is natural to me. And so we want to give ourselves compassion. All right. All right. So listen, your energy doesn't lie. Okay. Your energy doesn't lie. If you're always drained, if you're always distracted and or dissatisfied, it's not your life, you guys. It's not your life. It's your patterns. It's your patterns. Patterns are just decisions you've made so many times that they become automatic. Patterns are just decisions that you made so many times, you guys, that they just have become automatic. But if those decisions were based in fear, if they were based in guilt, and if they were based in survival, they won't support the freedom you seek today. They won't support that. So when your patterns and your values are out of sync, your life starts to feel hollow. You'll be you'll be doing the most, but feeling the least, right? You'll be doing the most, but feeling the least. Real power isn't in the doing the most, right? It's in choosing better. It's in choosing better, you guys, and going on that learning curve. You don't want to just feel productive. You want to feel present, anchored, and whole. You want to live from peace, not prove your worth through exhaustion, right? A woman I work with said, I realized I had built my entire life around being needed, but I was never known. I built my whole life around being needed, but it's essentially she was saying, but nobody never knew me. Okay. And once she started to align, she said, once I started to align my values instead of once I started to align with my values instead of my patterns, I felt like I could breathe, right? I felt this kind of weight lift off of me. All right. Listen, neuroscience shows that the brain will always default to familiar patterns. All right. Again, that's a law of the members, right? So your brain will always default to familiar patterns, even if they're harmful, you guys, even if they're harmful, unless you interrupt with intention, right? Unless you interrupt them intentionally with repeated action, right? So energy audits really help rewire your nervous system to support aligned decision making. Okay. So here's the thing. You're not lazy. You're just leaking energy. All right. You're just leaking and you're always, I'm sorry, you're not lazy. You're just leaking and you're allowed to stop giving your energy to what doesn't align. Okay. This is what you want, isn't it? Right? You want to stop giving your energy to what doesn't align, isn't it? Isn't it? If it is, put a heart in the chat for me. All right. All right. Listen, the P in patterns. The P in so in the framework, we know P stands for patterns. Patterns are the autopilot programs you didn't choose. All right. It is the autopilot programs that you didn't choose, but you've been. Good morning, Miss Jackie. But you've been living by them, okay? But you've been living by them, and now you get to update the operating system. You get to update the operating system. You don't need to push harder, you guys. You need to pause and realign. All right? You need to pause and realign. All right. So here's what I need you to know about your patterns and your values. Here's what I need you to know about your patterns and your values. Your patterns were built to protect you, but they are not who you are. All right. They were built to protect you, but they're not who you are. All right. Um, Sometimes your patterns are like your armor. Miss Melissa said, I had to look at the purpose of my business. Took some time to learn this, but I had to pluck certain things out of my schedule. Yes, yes, right. And that's okay because that's the audit and inventory. What do I need today? And remember, life is about seasons too, you guys. You know, good morning. Good morning, Miss Ivy. Okay. Life is about seasons too, you guys. And so, what I may need in this season of my life, I get to do an inventory to say that that's integrity. That's because, and then that's based on a value too, right? If one of my values is autonomy and freedom, then I get the freedom to say like what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And if we grew up in trauma, that feels unsafe. So you mean you can just say you want to leave? That is what a person hears when a person said I get the freedom to do what I want to do, right? They instantly go to abandon, and that is not at all what that means, right? I get to do what I want to do means that I get to live in the fullness of who I am. And if a season is requiring me to focus on something, then I get to focus on that. If a season is requiring for balance in my life, then I get to choose that balance in my life, right? But it has nothing to do with abandoning, right? Abandoning my relationship, abandoning, my kids. But when we think of free people having freedom, or even ourselves, right? Autonomy, speech, and things like that, we think about abandoning, right? Or being abandoned. If somebody say, I want my freedom, it's like, oh, so you want to leave? And we have to stop associating autonomy, right? Autonomy in this growing and becoming to our trauma and giving it a trauma response, because that's not what it is. When your daddy said he left because he needed to be free, right? Or or when somebody left because they wanted their freedom, right? This is not that type of freedom. All right. This freedom and growth is very different. It's space. It's space to expand. It's space to for language, right? It's not a trauma response freedom, right? So it's not that I'm gonna pack all my stuff up and leave. All right. And so we get to redefine what freedom means for us. And a lot of us are not free, right? Free, truly free, energetically and emotionally, because we've attached freedom to a trauma response. And so we're stuck in survival. Where really thriving is freedom, right? Freedom to be me. And a lot of us are not freeing ourselves to be ourselves because we see that as abandonment. And that's why we continue to abandon ourselves, right? Because we don't allow ourselves to the freedom to be who we are. Okay. If that makes sense, put a one in the chat for me. Put a one in the chat for me. All right. So your patterns weren't built to protect you, right? But they are, your patterns were built to protect you, but they're not who you are, right? Some of us wear our patterns as armors, right? So we're over functioning to really protect as protection from being dismissed. All right. So we over function to protect ourselves from being dismissed. People please, right? To protect ourselves from what? From being abandoned. Okay. Hyper independence to protect ourselves from disappointment. I can do this on my own. I don't need any help, right? To protect myself from disappointment. And so we create these patterns that truly support, right? That really more serve as armor, and that those patterns become some trauma responses, right? Trauma responses. And that is what I'm saying. We're still responding to in our grown self, right? Over functioning, people pleasing, and hyper independent, right? Which is a trauma response. And we're still surviving, but there's a part of us that wants to thrive, right? And now the armor, that pattern, that armor, it has gotten heavy. That armor has gotten heavy. So you built the pattern to really stay safe, but now it's keeping you small, right? And you don't need to wear that protection in the space that you're meant to heal in. Okay. You don't need to wear that protection in the space that's meant to heal you. All right. You don't need to wear that protection in the space that's meant to heal you, you guys. All right. Your values are your soul's voice. Patterns, though, are just an echo of your past. Okay. And remember, life is about growing, right? And so when I'm talking about soulfulness, right, it's not tied to religion. It's really talking about connection, right? Just regular connection to life, to grow, to this progression and evolution of divinity. All right. So your values are your soul's voice, right? It's your purpose. It's why I'm here, right? But your patterns are an echo of your past and who else's past? Your whole lineage, right? These are the things you taught, and they also are the conditions of what your members, right? There are the what your flesh has been taught to do. Okay, right? So you're likely confused because your life looks good, but your heart feels hollow. Okay, right? Because your value is your soul's voice, but your patterns are echo from the past. So in life right now, you're likely to be confused because although your life looks good, right, you may feel a sense of hollowness. And why? Because your values and your patterns are in war, right? The condition that these habits that you have and really what you value or what you want in your life, they're constantly in conflict with each other. You value peace, but you're stuck in patterns of proving. Good morning, Diamond. All right. You're stuck in patterns of proving yourself. You want peace, but you're stuck in patterns of proving, right? You value intimacy. You value intimacy, but you're stuck in patterns of shrinking, not really asking for you what you want, not really having the real connections, you know, that you desire. Okay. You value joy, right? But you keep performing out of pain, right? From fear of pain, from not wanting to feel pain, right? But you value joy. Okay. All right. The tension you feel is not confusion, you guys. It's your body letting you know that your habits don't match your heart. Okay. Your habits are no longer matching your heart's desire. Okay. All right. Number three, you have been living someone else's values long enough. Listen, you just have been living someone else's values long enough. You inherited your mother's uh keep maybe your mother's keep the peace mentality, right? Maybe the church's sacrifice your spirit mentality. Maybe society's be strong and stay silent mentality, right? And because you're loyal, right? And because you're loyal, you live them, right? You've assumed them. This is who you feel like you should be because you're a loyal person, right? So you've mastered, you've mastered your survival system, and now it's time to build your value system. Right? You've mastered this survival system, but now it's time to really build your value system, right? So the truth, so this is the truth, and I hope it like hits a little different for you. All right. Number four, your values are still inside of you. They're just buried under your patterns, right? They're just buried under your patterns, right? So you may think that that you don't know yourself anymore, right? You may think you don't know yourself anymore, but really, you've just been following habits that were never yours to begin with, right? So you may say things like, I just don't know who I am anymore. I just don't know how I got here. I just don't know, right? And it's truly just because, you've been following habits and behaviors, right, for so long, right? But they were never yours. They were, who you thought you needed to be, right? To get the job, to get in a relationship, right? To really keep the peace in the home, right? And so you never really stepped into the full version of you, right? You never got that opportunity. Maybe you got pregnant, maybe you started to have kids, maybe if you're a male, you had to take on responsibility as a person, right? So you never really got to experience the full blossomed you, right? That part of you got disrupted, because life happened. And so you had to pause that the natural evolution of who you are, and then kind of go into survival mode, right? And people started to tell you what you need to. You need to get a job, you need to do this, you need to do that. And so now your habits is truly based off of somebody else's programming. All right. Right. Your real value has always been there, though. Your real value has always been there. All right. And it's been whispering underneath all of these. It's been whispering underneath the noise of all of your obligations. All right. And that's the uncomfortableness, right? It's that voice that's whispering to you, like, what are you doing? It's why, and for some of you, that voice is getting louder and louder, right? Or you might not hear it in your voice, but it may be an uncomfortableness. Or some of us have just shut down. We just don't even hear it no more. We just go home, we unplug, and just don't do anything, right? We deem it as we just don't care anymore. I'm just gonna take care of these kids or whatever. We just have truly unplugged, right? Right. All right. So I do want you to know that that you have the permission to reinvent yourself, right? And you can return back to yourself, right? There is a space where that can happen, you guys. We don't have to give up on ourselves. Okay. Right. And then rewriting your patterns is not rebellion, it's actually restoration, right? Right. So you may fear that if you stop being the helpful one, the strong one, and the dependent one, that you will lose connection. But listen, to people who were only connected to your patterns will never truly connect to you. Okay? They were never truly connected to you. And the version of you that needs to emerge now, right? She's not selfish. She's sacred. He's not selfish. He's sacred. Okay? All right? So the people that's connected to the pattern you, they're not connected to you. And guess what? You feel that. I think that's the thing that makes us emotional because we feel that. We know that this person is plugged into the pattern, to the performed me, to the performative me, and not the me, right? But in some way, right, we still want to perform because there's a loyalty that you have and a commitment that you have to perform, right? Here's the thing, a part of that performing is you though. And I also want you to give yourself permission too. A part of this performative state is some of the things that we want to be doing. The misalignment is, why are we doing it? And that's why we need to talk about the things that we're valuing. Are we doing it from our highest best self, which is from integrity, or are we doing it from duty? And you need to know that, because if you're doing it from duty, it's an energy leak, right? And you're looking for some type of payment for that. If it's to be seen, to be recognized, to get some type of compensation energetically for it. But if it's done out of integrity, because it's your highest value, right? That's the reward in itself, right? Because you're doing what you feel like you want to do. Those are two different energies, two different ways of standing up. And this is why learning about emotional intelligence, right? Taking that emotional intelligence course is going to be so beneficial to you, because you're going to switch these paradigms from victim to duty and achievement to, like, how can I be in this, in this integrity paradigm? And being in integrity, you guys, is, again, like Jasmine, it's not that I'm in integrity, so I'm going to do everything right. It's like I'm in integrity, so now I have the auditor's energy, that when I go in, I can see where I was off, and then I can make the adjustments in my life. Then I learned the language to be gentle with myself enough, and I'm in a community where I can get the guidance and support that I need, a safe community where I can get the guidance and support I need to really be me and learn a version of me that I haven't been able to really express, anywhere else. And that's the power of that. All right. Right. So just know that rewriting your patterns is not rebellion, it's restoration, right? And you get to and that version of you, and the people that's connected to your patterns were never really connected to you, and you can connect back to yourself. Okay. That's not being selfish. That's being sacred, right? She's a sacred person, or he's sacred. All right. All right. And then you're not behind, okay? You're just unpracticed in choosing yourself. I want to say that you're not behind, you're just unpracticed in choosing you. Okay, let that one sit in and breathe that. You're not behind, you're just unpracticed in choosing you. You've chosen everybody else. You chose your kids, you chose your relationship, you've chosen school, you've chosen, your work every day, right? So it's not that you're behind, you just haven't chose you. And so you don't know how to choose you because you haven't practiced it. I people come into my office, or you can even ask my friends or people I'm around. I will always say, "Well, where did you learn it?" They're like, "I just didn't know." Right, but where would you have learned that at? Right, a big part of the coaching labs is just that practice. Practice is so important. Okay, so listen, you often feel like everyone else is further along, more successful, more free, maybe more aligned. But your delay wasn't laziness, you guys. It was loyalty, right? Right? You stayed loyal to the version of yourself that kept the peace, right? You stayed loyal to the family that guilted you into silence. You stayed loyal to the relationship that couldn't hold your fullness, right? You stayed loyal to the systems that um rewarded you disappearing, your invisibility. Okay, right? You're not late. You were just stuck in a loop of love that required your silence. Okay, and now that you're claiming or reclaiming your values, you right on time. You right on time to start practicing choosing you. You right where you need to be, as a reminder that, oh, okay, this is the space I need to be in, because I'm about to start practicing being loyal to me. And that, if that could feel, again, when you've been loyal to all these other things, that could feel like a betrayal. And I just want to say it ain't. But let's include you to these, right? Let's include you to these other systems, right? Okay. All right. You've been changing. You've been changing all the time. I want you to know you've been changing all the time. And you have and you just haven't been witnessed, right? So you've been changing all the time, you just haven't been witnessed, right? The inner work you've been doing has gone unseen. The inner work that you've been doing has gone unseen, right? You've grown quieter, you've grown softer, and you've grown wiser. But nobody claps for the boundaries that you have established, right? No one uh celebrates you for doing less, right? Right? Nobody celebrates that you not blowing up no more. Nobody's recognizing that, right? And so you feel like, right, right? You feel like nothing's changing, right? Right? Let me tell you this. You've been healing in plain sight. All right. Just because they didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't count. Just because they didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't count. You don't need more proof. You just need more presence. Whose presence? Your own. You just need your own presence. You know you've been doing the work. Listen, they not like you. Like you probably as the person that recognized, like, oh, you lost weight. Oh, look at you. You reading a book. Right. You acknowledging that, but a part of you probably acknowledging that is probably a trauma response too. You're doing it because you wanted what done to you, right? And now you go on your journey and you want people to recognize that you didn't just bite somebody's head off or that you're not cussing as much or whatever that thing is that you have been working on because you have been working on it, but nobody's reminding it. No, nobody is noticing it, right? And I'm just saying that you don't need their proof, right? You just need more presence, more of your presence. Okay. All right. Does that make sense? And it's okay because we do want that, right? That's a truth. But sometimes we want it from the wrong area. The real person we want it from is us. So it's time to start really standing up for ourselves and learning how to be present with ourselves and us seeing that and grieving that old idea, right? Long enough for us to really stand in our own self enough to see ourselves and be present with it. All right. So you have it. So you've been changing all along, right? You just haven't been witnessed, right? And remember we talked about two witnesses, and one of those witnesses is you. It's you. All right. Right. Okay. You can outgrow patterns without becoming a different person. Okay. You can't outgrow patterns without being a different person. This is big, right? Because sometimes we fear that if if we stop being the go-to, the fixer, the strong one, that we won't be lovable anymore, right? If I stop becoming that person, that I won't be lovable anymore, right? But here's the truth, right? You don't have to become someone else to honor your values. Remember, you let me say this, you don't have to become someone else to honor your values. You just have to stop betraying the version of you who's been whispering, please let me breathe, right? So again, that's the difference between being in that duty phase and the integrity phase. And a lot of us, we don't even know our values. Are you giving because you feel like you need to give? Is it a bait behind that? Are you seeking attention, right? You need to know that without judgment, though, right? We don't want to judge. We want to have some compassion around that, right? And then we need a space where we can unpack it, right? Because it may be who you want to be, but it's been structured in a way that is just not working for you. It's just not working for you. I think about like a lot of people I work with in particular, and I'm just gonna make a general comment. A lot of times, the women I work with, they are like, "Oh, I don't get no help at home. I gotta cook. I come home. I gotta, take care of the kids." And guess what? It's not even that they don't want to do that stuff. Like it's not. When it boils down to it, they're not getting the attention, right? They like to cook. They want to take care of the kids. It's a part of them that wants that, right? But they also want the attention from their mate. They want the support, right? Emotional support. They want to know that, if I go handle my son, I can come to my mate and cry or talk about that, or I have a place to really release that, and my mate is going to be there to catch me, right? When that space of their openness is not there, and vice versa with men too, when there's not a space where I feel like where they feel like that they don't have a container that can catch them, now everything feels like a task. Like I have to clean up, I have to cook, I have to go to work, I have to take care of the kids, and I have no one to what take care of me. And it ain't so much the task that we're talking about, it's the energy that's created as a consequence of the task, right? The emotions that's created as a consequence of the task, right? I have no one to process that with, digest that with, connect with, transmute that with, right? And so what do? We isolate, right? We have no one to really share those emotions with or that energy with, right? If that makes sense, put a two in the chat. So a lot of us are disconnected in relationships, right? We're suffering in silence in a sense, right? Like, and we don't feel supported, so we feel alone, right, in these spaces. All right. So, so a lot of us feel like we would have to. So this is good because this is big because a lot of us feel like I would have to change who I am, right? I would have to change from the fixer, from the strong one, from the go-to person. No, you don't have to change that, right? You just have to get the language to start communicating what do you need so that when you do those things that you're doing them with more ease, right? And then when you do those things, that you're able to communicate the consequence of doing those things. I love the work that I do, right? But I also have a therapist and I have a coach and I have a people around me because doing it can be heavy. It's not that I don't love it, but doing it can be heavy sometimes. And I need some individuals to support me in this calling and this mission, right? And a lot of us don't have that. Does that make sense? Right? And we're looking for our mates to provide us with that and things like that, right? And so we're scared that if you don't have to become someone else to honor your values, right? That's a mindset shift, right? You just have to really stop portraying the version of you that's whispering, please let me breathe, right? Okay. And that's really giving that space language. All right. You're not selfish. There's nothing selfish about alignment. Okay, this is the last one. You're not selfish about alignment, you guys. Um, for anyone who was raised in service, in silence, in service and silence and in sacrifice, this is where your freedom begins. All right, you are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not wrong for saying no. Okay. You are not guilty for protecting your energy. You are finally living from really what your soul, you are finally living like your soul matters. Like there's a piece of you that matters, right? That's not rebellion, you guys. That is restoration. Okay. Listen, patterns were never meant to be prisons. They were never meant to be prisons. Values were never meant to be buried, right? This is a moment where we really stop living like a role and really start living like the individuals who remembers our worth and our value. Okay. All right. And that's why it's so important to start seizing control of our life's choices. And why am I doing what I'm doing? And doing an inventory on why am I doing this? Right? Am I doing this because somebody told me to? Am I doing this out of an outdated belief system? Right? Why am I showing up the way I'm showing up? And is that in alignment with who I am today? And if I don't even know that, where can I go to ask these questions, right? And get the answer, and get the answers that I need. Okay. So let's move on to our biblical wisdom. The do not conform to the patterns of the world, be ye transformed by the renewing of our mind. That is Romans 12:2. Okay. So we talked about this verse before. We talked about the patterns of the world and being transformed by the renewing of our mind. And I've talked about this verse in a different ways, right? So these patterns of the world mean these old, we tend to see these patterns of the world being externally, but a lot of these patterns of the world is the conditions, right, within us, right, within our habits and things like that. So this verse is not about It's not just about morality, right? It's about identity and internal freedom, right? Do not conform to the pattern. In this session, the pattern could be over functioning to feel valuable, right? Saying yes out of guilt, working until you're empty because rest is lazy, because you believe that rest is lazy, shrinking to be loved, right? Right. I think that we can intellectualize emotions, right? So we can say, I'm a gallon and he's a cup, and it's like I'm, trying to pour my gallon into his cup and it just don't fit, but I'm still in a relationship, right? So what you gonna do with that? I ain't saying leave it, but okay. So if you a gallon and you with the person that only can sustain a cup, do that mean you shrink from the gallon now? All right. You have just shrunk, and then you made it wise, and that sound good and that makes sense, but what do you do with that, right? Because now it sounds like that there's still so much of you that's not being experienced. Okay. And how do we get to experience that? And that doesn't mean that we got to lead a cup, right? Do we expand his gallon? Like, and this is where the work is, right? But the trauma response is abandon, like leave, right? Because he a cup and I'm a gallon, or she a cup and I'm a gallon, or we just don't match. That's the trauma response. The healthy response is let's figure it out. Let's get to know each other. And if we choose to depart, right, we're departing as whole people who made a decision because we've done the work, right? But I'm gonna work on me and you're gonna work on you. Same with our work, right? A lot of times we're misaligned in our work, right? And is it really the boss, right? Is it really the boss, right? Or is the work you're doing just so out of alignment with the thing you value in life? Okay. So these aren't just habits, you guys. They're worldly patterns, survival systems shaped by your trauma, by culture, by performance, by patriarchy, by religion, and by condition. So Paul is saying, don't blindly accept the default scripts around you. All right. Instead, challenge them, examine them, rewire them. All right. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transform begins when you audit your thoughts, you guys, when you audit your thoughts, not just your beliefs, but the patterns, because those, because the patterns, but the patterns, those beliefs created. All right. Because your patterns are created by what? By your beliefs. This isn't just about behaviors. This is about liberation, right? You don't need to conform to the hustle culture or the trauma response or the church guilt or the childhood script, right? You are allowed to unlearn what survival taught you. You are allowed to unlearn that, and you can renew your mind and align with the truth, not fear. All right. So this verse gives divine permission to really choose alignment over autopilot. Okay. To choose alignment over autopilot. Okay. This verse isn't about rule following, it's about pattern breaking. Okay, Paul is saying you've been shaped by systems, stories, and survival mode for so long that you don't even realize how misaligned your thoughts have been. So the patterns of the world isn't just culture; it's the beliefs. It's the belief that rest is lazy. It's the self worth. It's the belief that self worth has to be earned. It's the belief that peace must um, come after performance. Right? It's the belief that your value is in what you do, not in who you are, right? And is where the here is where it hits, right? If your mind isn't renewed, your energy can't be realigned. If your patterns aren't questioned, your peace will always feel out of reach. Okay. So this scripture really gives you permission to rethink everything that you've been doing on autopilot, not from guilt, you guys, but from grace. All right. So when this is a good reframe. When I renew my mind, I'm not. This is a first person. When I renew my mind, I'm not just breaking habits. I'm restoring divine alignment within me. Okay, the Holy Spirit isn't yelling to me from the sky; it's nudging me gently from within. This is not who you are anymore. Let's choose differently. Okay, all right. And then promise verse, Galatians 5:1. It is the freedom that Christ has set us free. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourself be burdened again by a yoke of slavery, right? It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourself be burdened again by the yoke of slavery. All right. This verse is a soul level declaration of agency. Paul isn't just talking about religious law here. He's addressing any system, any structure, or pattern that binds you when you are called to live free, right? The yoke of slavery could be hustling for approval, living by other people's expectations, trying to earn love through performance, shrinking to stay safe in relationships, betraying your values to maintain peace. Do not let yourselves be burdened again, which means you have a choice. Okay? You can stand firm in the truth that you are already loved, you are already worthy, and you are already free, and you no longer have to carry what you were never meant to hold. Right? You don't have to carry what you were never meant to hold. All right? All right? So here's what it is. You don't have to go back to the pattern just because it's familiar. You can sit. You don't have to go back to the pattern just because it's familiar. You were set free to live free. And any voice that tries to guilt you back into being smaller than the truth, it's not of God. It's a lie. Okay? It's not of God, it's a lie. This verse gives permission to rest, to reset, and to stop hustling for worth, right? This verse is not just about religious freedom, it's about emotional, mental, and spiritual freedom. And what keeps us bound today, really people pleasing, emotional labor, okay? Patterns of overgiving, guilt-based relationships, performative relationships, transactional relationships, hustling for love, approval, and visibility. This verse is a command to really protect your alignment. You've been set free. Don't handcuff yourself again to habits that betray your peace. All right. And this is a good God in me reframe. Listen, Christ didn't set me free from sin. He set me free from cycles. Okay. From the need to prove, to overperform, to shrink. And the spirit in me now reminds me, don't go back. Don't go back to what you've don't go back to what you've been healed from. Choose alignment instead. Choose alignment instead. These verses are not rules. They're just reminders, right? They remind us that transformation is not internal, it's external. Transformation is internal, not external, because it's external. Your peace is evidence of your obedience of the spirit, not to performance. Your peace is evidence of your obedience to spirit, not to performance. And the most sacred form of worship is not just praise, it's pattern disruption in the direction of your freedom. Okay? Because the God who lives in you doesn't want to live tired, hidden, and fake, you guys. He wants you to live aligned, whole, and anchored in the truth. All right. So these scriptures together say you can renew your patterns, you can reclaim your mind, you can refuse to carry what is not aligned with your truth. And freedom isn't just an idea, it's a practice. Okay. And God didn't just save your soul, He gave you authority to shift your systems and do that, and that starts with your patterns. That starts with your patterns. All right. So I want you to ask yourself, what patterns are you being invited to release so that you can walk in the freedom that's already yours? All right. So you can walk in that freedom that's already yours. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. All right. So we have our action steps. So how do we put all of this into practice? Okay. Well, we want to identify one repeated habit or pattern that you've outgrown. You want to write that down, then name the value that it violates. Okay. The value that it violates. All right. And then our affirmation for today. Our affirmation for today is, look at that. I am no longer loyal to habits that betray my peace. And then our intention for today. Today I choose to reflect. Um, Today I choose to reflect energy that reflects my truth, not my trauma. Today I choose to reflect energy that reflects my truth, not my trauma. Okay. All right. All right. And then our bonus, if you want a bonus one, a bonus. Our bonus for today is for the next 24 hours. For the audit your energy for the next 24 hours. Okay. Track what gives you life and what drains your life. Then make one decision that honors your values instead of your patterns. All right. That honors your energy and that honors your values instead of your patterns. All right. And then we know we always end with a call, a challenge, and a charge. All right. A call, a challenge, and a charge. And today's call is what truth are you walking away with? Right. The challenge is what's one habit you're ready to shift. And then the charge is go shape your life. I'm charging you to go shape your life with the patterns that support, okay, your peace. All right. Listen, if today's session resonated with you and you're walking away with insight today, you already know what to do. Drop a fire in the chat. Drop a fire in the chat and let's celebrate our growth, you guys, together. Let's celebrate our growth together. And if this session woke something up in you, this is exactly the type of insight that we explore in those weekly coaching labs. Listen, we don't just reflect, we reshape. Okay. That's what Project Life, where we turn theory into practice. For this month, we're going to be, or this is the last month that you can join Project Life for $47 a month. You guys, you can do that at SheilaLittle.com. And I want you to remember this. If you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life, you guys. I love you. I love you. I love you. I will be posting tomorrow's show. So I'll see you tomorrow, right? For that life lesson. I will see you tomorrow for that life lesson. Till later. Thank you, Miss Melissa. I will talk about the inner critic. Till later.